Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pixley for President. My name is Jared Pixley, candidate for president in the 2028 election. If you are new to this channel, welcome. Please like the video, subscribe, share it with your friends. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you for staying with us. Please continue to like my videos and share them with your friends. Together we can grow this audience so that my campaign could be a serious contender to win the presidency. I'm sure that most of you have heard about Trump's new $1.8 billion slush fund. Since the YouTubers that I watch are all talking about it, I thought it was time for me to talk about it. Now, in 2018, during Trump's first term, a subcontractor for the IRS released Trump's tax records. Now, this is bad. He was not supposed to do that. It's a violation of the confidentiality. Trump has now decided to sue the IRS over it for $10 billion. However, the statute of limitations for this crime is only 2 years, and the law allows you to recoup only $2,000. Trump must have known that his lawsuit would not stand up in court. But since he is both the plaintiff and the defendant in this case, he decided to settle with himself for $1.8 billion. And he decided to use it to create a slush fund to give money to his supporters. Now this money is coming out of a fund operated by the Department of Justice. It's a recompense fund for people who have grievances against the government. And this money is used to, pay them any fines or whatever that the courts see fit. And Trump is calling it his anti-weaponization fund. There's a lot with that name, but I don't want to get into that. Now, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche was brought before Congress and questioned if he had any defense for Trump's slush fund, especially if there were any previous examples of the president suing his own government and creating a fund to give money to other people. The only case that Blanche could cite in defense was a lawsuit from 2010 by Native American farmers against the Department of Agriculture, Keeps Eagle versus Vilsack. In the end, the court created a fund with specific eligibility standards for these Native American farmers to recoup losses caused by the government. This was the only case Blanche could cite, and you might notice a few key differences. One, it was a class action suit against the government, not the president suing himself. Second, the court set up the fund and set up specific rules, not Trump setting up a fund instead of going to court. 3. Instead of specific rules for eligibility, there are no rules that anyone has released for this fund. In fact, ex-Proud Boy leader Enrico Tarrio says that he wants tens of millions of dollars from the fund. Another attorney that has worked for Trump, I believe, he said that one of the Jan 6ers that has since been arrested again, since he was already pardoned and released by Trump, but was arrested again for child pornography, I believe, that he is entitled to some insane amount of money, from this fund. So, whereas the rules, what's the eligibility? Can anyone, get money? Todd Blanche is, as head of the DOJ, gets to set up a 5-man board to oversee the fund and determine who gets money. And Trump can fire anyone on that board on a whim. Now, 2 Capitol police officers who were on the scene on January 6th are suing to stop this fund, as they don't want government money going to people, uh, or to pay for people that committed crimes, which is what this fund seems to be created for. Now, this lawsuit has torn some Republicans between doing what Trump wants and the whole Blue Lives Matter. Um, they know that if they go against the cops, they'll lose their votes. If they go against Trump, the next 2.5 years is going to be rough on them. Now, a University of Southern California law professor, and Adam Zimmerman, has gone on record saying there has been no class action, no allegations that laws have been violated, no judicial oversight, and to this day there does not even appear to be an identifiable set of lawsuits for the government to settle. The president is suing himself and compensating other people for legal claims that have not been identified from people that we don't know. We just haven't seen anything like that. Now he's saying that, this money is to settle actual claims that laws have been violated. All the Jan 6ers, they were arrested for real crimes. They went to court, they were found guilty, and they were pardoned. And lots of DOJ lawyers have quit over those pardons because they did not deserve to be pardoned in their, in their legal view. None of these people have come out to say that any laws have been violated. They're not suing the government. So there's no claim for the government to settle with this fund, with this money from a fund to settle legal claims. It's just Trump taking this money, taking your money, and giving it to people that he likes. Now, one more thing about this fund. There is a clause, Clause D, in the paperwork that creates this fund, that the government, once they move the money into this fund, has no more liability for any bank errors, fraud, or whatever that happens to the money. So once they put it into this fund to give to people, they don't care what happens to it. So the possibility that they put the money into the fund, they remove themselves from all liability, and then Trump just goes and pockets the whole $1.8 billion. Who knows, because they're, removing themselves from the deal. I'm just saying that's a possibility. Now, in addition, as part of his settlement with himself, Trump is banning the IRS from ever auditing him, his family, or his businesses ever again. Now, this stops the $100 million bill that the IRS has been working on for his alleged tax fraud, and means that he doesn't have to pay taxes ever again. If they can't ever audit him again, why would he have to pay taxes anymore? They can't do anything about it. And there is no precedent for this. No other president has ever made himself immune from taxes. This is purely abuse of power and a license to commit future fraud. This immunity was issued by Todd Blanche at the DOJ in a less than one-page memo signed only by Todd Blanche. Now, if elected, one of my first jobs will be to throw this out and order the IRS to audit all of them. Now, since it was just a single memo issued by Todd Blanche, an executive order, I believe, would be able to override this. If this has to go to court, all the legal experts, think that the law would be on my side. multiple, you know, lawyers have come out saying how there's just no precedent, there's no legal reason for this. It just won't hold up in court. And I'm willing to put it to the test. But yet, I will have the IRS audit, Trump, Eric, Don Jr., all of Trump's businesses. Because if he already owes the IRS $100 million for double dipping a refund, or not a refund, a tax dodge, who knows how much else we could find once he thinks no one else is watching. I'm sure we could hit him for a whole lot more than $100 million once I'm in office. This corruption needs to come to an end. Now, there's nothing we can do about Trump. He's in the office, and the Constitution does not give us a recall vote. Now, yes, they could find him unfit under the 25th Amendment. I highly doubt that's going to happen. Midterm elections, they could impeach him, and maybe they have enough weight in the Senate to remove him from office. It's about as hopeful as I'm going to get. But Trump, while he is a problem, he isn't the problem. He's a symptom of the problem. The problem is the lack of education in our country. That the people who will believe anything voted him in. People were lied to. They were gullible enough to believe it. They were tricked into voting for him. Well, at least a certain percentage were. The cult that worships him, that built him the golden idol, they have an even deeper set of problems. The people who only watch Fox News, just didn't know how to do their own research. The problem is an educational one. As I've said many times, other countries are laughing at our educational system. We are ranked down in, so far down the list. We're an African country levels of education. We need to improve that system. We need to teach people how to think for themselves, how to do their own research. Heck, we need to teach people how to read, since 25% of the population is barely literate. There's so many people that just can't even understand or read a shopping list. That's what we need to fix. If we can make the next generation smarter than we are, perhaps we won't find ourselves in this problem again. That's the problem I want to work on in office. I want to make that my legacy. Improve the American educational system so that we have smarter adults voting for a better president. And I hope that promise and that goal, is good enough for you. So, if you agree with me, please support my campaign, share my videos, sign up for my newsletter to learn more. You can check out all my links in the description below. Feel free to go to my website, donate to my campaign, and tell all your friends so that they can follow as well. Thank you very much for coming. If you have any ideas for future videos, please put them in the comments below. Have a wonderful day.